Welcome to Let's Chat with Julie Lewin and the Spirit Talk series, where we delve into the realms of intuition, energy, and spiritual awakening, uncovering the wisdom that resides within each of us and the universe at large. I'm your host, Julie Lewin. Thank you for joining us. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Chat with Julie Lewin and my very special guest, Rebekah Mylonas. And Beck is a visionary oracle, high priestess, soul catalyst, alchemist, activator, and creatrix, devoted to walking the path of divine love and paving pathways of light for others to walk behind. And I totally relate to that, and I'm going to come back to that. Her mission is to facilitate soul remembering and to guide others home to their sacred gifts. Wow. Welcome back.
Hi.
And before we get going, I want to just say we met you because you came and did some work for us.
Yes.
And that was like a couple of years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came and worked for us. It was pretty incredible, and it's been a lovely journey. So why don't you share just a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and then we'll get into a juicy conversation.
Absolutely. It's always such an interesting question. I've just gone through this huge dismantling of who I am. And I recently just changed my name. Like within the past week, I changed the spelling of my name from Rebekah, CCA, to Rebekah, KAH, as a symbol of like, I have shifted into this whole new identity. So in this point where I'm at, I'm trying to figure out who I am and what I am and what it all is. I think we can use a lot of words to describe who we are. For me, who I'm being and what I'm doing with my life is how I like to describe myself. And so I am 100%, million, thousand, billion% devoted to God, to walking the path of God. And that's what Rebekah actually means. It means servant of God. And it's really interesting because a few years ago when I started on this path, I was like, I need to change my name. I need to change my name. I don't resonate with Rebekah. I need to change my name. And Spirit was like, no, you don't. And I was like, why?
Right.
And then recently, like literally like last week, I went through this whole journey of my book, which we're going to talk about. And I was like, it's time to look into the meaning of Rebekah. And I looked into it, and Rebekah means servant of God. And it means like grace and like beauty that ensnares and all these other things. But the servant of God, I was like, fuck, Mom, how did you come up with my name? And she was like, it just came to me. I just saw you and I was like, she's a Rebekah. So I've changed it to the KAH because Ka is like light body, Egyptian Ka. There's something in that different spelling that marks like soul.
Because it creates a new frequency.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
And speaking of names, I changed my name back in 1999 or 98 to Julz, Jules, because a lot of people called me Jules. And I didn't like Julie. And then I went on my spiritual odyssey for 3 intensive years. And in that odyssey, I was instructed to change it back to my birth name, which was Julie. And so I've been Julie for the last 20 odd years. But my brother still calls me Jules, Julz, and my sister-in-law, and there's a few people who knew me back then still spell it Julz, and it's kind of like, oh, that's right, I was that person for a while.
It's trippy, like a couple of letters. Like I'm looking at, my book, it says Beck Mylonas, my website says Beck Mylonas, my Instagram says Beck Mylonas, everyone knows me as Beck, and I'm like, I'm Rebekah now. I've never called myself Rebekah, and now I'm like, no, I'm Rebekah.
Oh.
And it's the same name, but it's like a reclamation of something, and it's interesting. I told my parents, I was like, you have to call me Rebekah, and they're like, we're going to call you Beck. I'm like, call me whatever you want to call me. But yeah, it's interesting, identity shifting.
Tell me, what happens in your body when somebody calls you Rebekah?
It's so interesting because it used to be like when I was in trouble, like as a kid, right? Like it was like that. And now when I see, and it's the spelling, right? It's when I see Rebekah with the KAH, my womb lights up, my whole body lights up, and I feel like I'm a priestess. It's weird. It's like some biblical thing happens in my cells, and it's like, especially the KA, the car body, car light.
You know the different frequency if somebody calls you Rebekah now, like I'm calling you Rebekah? How will you know the frequency, or is it only going to be when it's written that you will feel it?
I think it's no one calls me Rebekah ever. And when people call me Rebekah, it was like weird. I was
You
like,
think you're in trouble.
yeah,
So how
yeah.
will you not think you're in trouble when people start calling you Rebekah?
I think it's like I've collapsed those timelines, and so it doesn't like it just does. I
There's
can't
no
connect.
charge.
It just doesn't. I don't connect to it, and yeah, it's weird. But it's more of a spelling visual, like the visual cue of
Okay.
seeing it. Because people still call me Becca, Becca.
Yeah.
It's weird. I'm still not used to the spelling too, so it's like it's a trip. It's a whole trip, and it's like, wow, who would have thought three little letters are going to make this huge difference? But it does. It's like it's a thing.
That's the thing. And you know what? I know someone else who spells it K-A-H. And I'm going to get her to listen to the podcast
There you go.
so that she understands the meaning behind the word. And so talk to me about being in love with God, because I say that not to everyone, so I'm outing myself here to say that I'm in love with God. What's that like for you?
I told you it's like I just want people to feel like, if you can feel energy, what it feels like to come home to God, and just to know like like you're so supported and you're so loved and you're so worthy, and it's like this big being enveloped by this golden light all the time. Where it's like even when things are going so horribly wrong, there's this faith or this trust. Um, it's just love. Like that's all it is. And I think God, the word God, has so much charge around it.
It does.
And Christianity and like things like it's just so much shit. Excuse my language, shit for stuff around it.
I'm
I can say
right
shit
there with you. It's like I've had people say to me, Julie, that word is offensive to me. Please don't use that word. And I'm on retreat, and I have to. They're wanting me to change my language because the word God is offending them. And I think God, that word has the highest frequency of any word
Oh my
on
God,
the planet.
it does.
Why would you not want to use that? God is not religion. Religion is man created, but that connection with God, divinity, divine order, it's not about religion. And I'm not a big advocate of organized religion. If someone says to me, I'm in love with God, I love God, I have this direct relationship with God, I want to know that person. I want to know who they are and what that means for them, not the religious stuff that man has manipulated to control. And it's not just man controlling woman, it's man controlling the masses. You know, do I know what I'm talking about? Probably not, but I know what I feel.
Absolutely.
And I feel the frequency of that word, and I love it. I love that connection. I actually have a God story. Would you like me to share?
Yes. And I want to
Okay.
agree with you before you say that. The frequency of the word God is like people can't even say it or claim it because it's so big. Once you say it, it's like God. So they say the universe, the divine, the benevolent creator, the source. And it's like, no, when you start using the word God, something shifts because you're like, oh, there's something bigger than me. And that's humility almost to like say that. So anyway.
So I was thinking about this just this week, about that experience. And when was it? 1994, 30 years ago exactly. In August, 30 years ago, I was on the TV show The Extraordinary, and my world blew up, famous overnight kind of thing. And the TV show sold to 22 countries around the world, and people just wanted, they wanted what I had, and they wanted me to save them. or heal them or whatever. And, you know, it just got too much. And this is back in the day where we didn't have the internet, we didn't have mobile phones. It was landline and put a stamp on a letter and post it. Yeah, yeah. It was a long time ago, right? Not. And so I thought, I'm saying the same thing over and over, one person at a time. What if I invite a bunch of people into my lounge room and I can say it once and they all hear it at the same time? That was a revelation for me. So I did that. And I knew I needed to be finished by 2:30 because I had to go and pick the kids up from school. And you know what? Some of them wouldn't even let me go to the toilet. And I was busting to go to the toilet. And they're saying, no, you can't. Because when you come out, somebody else will grab you and I'll miss out. Like, it was full on and overwhelming. And in the end, I just had to move them all out of the house and say, I have to get my children. But I was exhausted. I didn't know about protection. I didn't know about cleansing. I didn't know about energy hygiene. I was naive. There was no teachers back then. We couldn't Google people. So I went and got the kids, did what every 80s mum did, and gave them a snack and parked them in front of the TV on the sofa. And I was walking up the hallway and I thought, if you were your client, Julie, what would you tell you to do? And I was halfway up the hallway and I thought, I would say, hold a crystal. And I went, I've got a big amethyst crystal in the bathroom that my mum had given me. I went and got it and I went and lay on my bed and I put the point of the crystal into the palm of my hand and I held it. So that's how big it was. It was quite big. And then something weird happened. I felt this current coming up my arm, up my neck, and my mouth started moving by itself.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, am I channeling? What's going to come out of my mouth? Like, I'd been practicing psychic development for 2 years and all I wanted was to be a channel. But when it started happening, I was terrified.
Freaked out.
And I'm going, Frank's not here. The children, what's going to happen? And so my heart was like coming like this. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then this stillness came over me. And you know, when you close your eyes, it's black behind your eyelids, right? In that space was this man figure, had long white hair, long white robes, and was just standing there. And I went, and I reached my arm out and I went, are you God? Like, it was incredible. So that's where I got to with that story. And then I'm going to digress and I'll come back. In the October 30 years ago, someone wrote me and said, if I fly you to Ireland to work with an AIDS patient, would you go? And that was at the height of AIDS, where no one wanted to be in the presence of someone with AIDS. It was pretty awful back then. And I spoke to Frank and he said, yes, you can go. So I went. And while I was there, we were out on a drive and he said to me, do you know the beginning and the end of the Greek alphabet? And I said, well, alpha? I said, I don't know what the end is. And he said, it's omega. I said, why do you ask? He said, no reason. I said, there must be a reason. Why do you ask? He wouldn't tell me. So then I flew home and I had rescheduled the clients from that week into the next week. So it was jam-packed. And I had this man sitting in the room and I could hear this noise. It was like two metal discs were spinning on each other with the a little thin layer of oil. Like it was a really odd noise that I've not heard before or since. And he was sitting very oddly. He, in the school, you may not remember, back in the 60s and 70s, the school photographer would get the kids to sit with their hands on their knees like that. He was sitting like that, and he was sitting up straight with his hands on his knees, not like people normally sit. And when I did the scan of his body, an ET came through the door into where I was doing the visual work. And I said, no, you can't come in here. And he said, I'm not leaving. So then I asked my guide, what do I do? There were two. He said, one can stay. So one stayed and the other left. And, this was really confronting for me because this was new. I was new at all of this, and I thought, okay, so aliens are now visiting my healing space. Do I share or do I not share? So he says, can you hear that noise? I said, yes. He said, what do you think it is? So in my mind, I'm going, I could tell him what I really think, or I could say, I don't know. So I had this battle, and I said, I think it's a spaceship. He said, it could be. He said, and I could be an alien. And I said, yes, you could. And so then I thought, this is just too weird. And I thought, okay, do I tell him about what I saw in the thing? And so I decided I would. And his response was, what's the beginning and the end of the Greek alphabet?
Oh, that's weird.
And I said, I know the answer to that, Alpha and Omega. He said, correct. No word of a lie. He just got up and walked out. Like,
That's so random.
What was that all about? I didn't do anything. I didn't tell him what I saw. He just delivered the message and got up and walked out. Come back to Are You God? And I sat up and I looked on the floor, and there was a green New Testament Bible on the floor that was not there when I laid down. It was this big. And I went, okay, it's here for a reason. So I held my hands on it. And I said, dear God, there's a message here for me. Please reveal it. No word of a lie. I opened it.
I am the Alpha and the Omega. Shut up. No. Shut up.
True
Chills.
story. Revelations. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last.
Wow.
The long white hair, the long white robes, and the golden staff. And there's the clock.
I know.
Going on. So, yeah, that's my God story. And I hadn't thought of that for ages, but I thought of it just this last week. And I thought, yeah, I need to reconnect with that experience. And so now I've just shared it on the podcast. That's the space that I operate in. And so that's why when you say I'm in love with God, I really relate and resonate, because what else is there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like what's coming through to speak into or say or like talk about the end and the beginning, right? The end and the beginning. This is like a message that has been really coming strongly through me. And this book is about prophecy, right? So I just wrote a book, we'll talk about it, but the prophecy of the Mayan lineage, and also like it's from God, it's channeled through me, is the end and the beginning. That cyclical nature, the dark and the light, the all of it and the nothing, the feminine and the masculine. And I think God and it's interesting that it was a New Testament Bible, and that's what I find really interesting, because the God of the Old Testament Bible and the God of the New Testament Bible are vastly different gods. I don't resonate at all with the stern, I'm going to smite my people and you're going to learn lessons and go to hell God. I resonate strongly with the Jesus is God, the God of love and forgiveness and compassion. The interesting thing that I find is that the feminine aspect of God is cut out of the Bible, pushed out of the Bible, right? And I think the goddess or Mother Earth, the feminine aspect of creation, is just as important to revere. And I think that's why it took me so long to claim the masculine element and the father god, like the god with the robe and the, like that god, the Christian god, because I was like, but you're negating, like choosing this is negating this whole other side, which is the darkness, which is the feminine, which is, the other thing. But it's like, I think people need to come to this point of realizing God is all of it. Like God is all of it. God is the feminine and the masculine and the father and the mother and the child and the, like it's all of it. It's not just this one aspect of God that is pushed onto us of what God is. And I think there's just like so much shame and guilt and heaviness that's associated with the word God and who God is, that God is this spiteful, vengeful, condemning God, and that's just not how I know God to be, and that's not my experience.
Me neither. And I just feel like there's divine order in everything, and you just look at nature. Like there's divine order in nature. Why wouldn't there be divine order in humanity? There's divine order in the universe. Why wouldn't there be divine order in humanity? And do things happen that we wonder why?
Yes.
For sure. But I still think there's divine order.
Absolutely. Yeah, destruction has to happen so creation can happen. Like that's the death has to happen so new life can happen. Like it's a constant cycle. And so for me, like to negate the other side of things, that is the dark or is the the not comfortable or the discomfort or the sad or whatever that stuff is to negate God for me, because I see it's all perfect.
Look, the thing is, and I usually only talk about this in my inner circle, so I'm outing myself again. The thing is, and I'm generalizing here, and I know I'm generalizing, and that I'm not pointing fingers, but what's happening is parenting today want to protect their children from hurt and pain and discomfort. And the thing is that diamonds.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said this, because I was literally about to be like, it's a diamond
under
heart.
pressure.
Yes.
Under pressure. It's the pressure.
Oh my God, yes.
That makes us want something so bad that we're willing to endure the pain, the discomfort of it. And so when I read, like I like to read biographies, autobiographies, I like to read about where successful people come from. Invariably, successful people have had a shizen childhood, or they've had really awful things happen to them as young adults. It's what gets you the grit in your belly, and you're going to go, no, I'm actually going to forge through this. I'm going to overcome this. So my journey is different to your journey, different to someone else's journey. My journey has been, I was born full term at 5 pound 10. Like that's a tiny baby at full term. My mum was sick for 9 months. She vomited for 9 months. So I didn't get the nutrition. I was born with a weak constitution. I was born with like I had to manage through. I was born with allergies. I got tick bite. At 2, I nearly died from tick fever. Like there's all these obstacles that I had to overcome. And if I shared all of the obstacles, you'd go, holy shit, Julie, how did you get through that? Well, one breath and one step at a time. But I had this grit in my belly that I was going to get well, that I was going to overcome the illnesses. And it wasn't just physical illnesses, it was mental challenges as well, of being unhappy and depressed and not wanting to live. Did I get to the point of wanting to suicide? No, I didn't get to that point, but I really wanted someone to kill me so that I didn't have the responsibility of doing it. Like, how messed up is that? So it's been an incredible journey of how do you find the grit in your belly? And then what do you do when you just go, I'm done, I can't do that? That surrender and of burning everything to the ground and wanting to give up, that's part of the journey.
Absolutely.
And that's what you've been going through. So
Absolutely.
talk at that, because you know, it's been up and down and in and out and around. And it's hard. It's really hard. And no one knows what goes on inside an individual's mind.
So so much is coming through, and I love that you said diamond, because my book is called Diamond Light Oracle. It's about the diamond light path. And I remember, and I said this to you, and I'm going to out you on the show now in front of everyone. I said this to you, and I said, Julie, you work with the frequency of Jesus, and it's this pure Christ consciousness that comes through you. And I felt that in you. And that, to me, Christ consciousness it's like having to face your own willing crucifixion and death it's a constant. It's not just a one time like Jesus did, but it's a constant crucifixion, rebirth on that fucking cross of all of your stuff. So you're rebirthing into new iterations and versions of yourself that's more surrendered, that's more in tune, because in order to be a vessel for the divine, for God, for the soul, for whatever's will working through you, basically need to be broken down into something pure and clear. So I talk about this process in the book, like how those of us who are walking this diamond light path, we are put through such stringent and intense pressure spiritually, emotionally, through our path, whatever it is, so we can be fortified to be a clear reflection of spiritual light and truth. That we can't, like, nothing can crack a diamond except another diamond. Nothing can scratch or cut a diamond, right? So it's like, you are refined and refined and refined and refined. So you are just such a pure frequency of light that, like, and spiritual truth, that no one's reflection or projection on you can cut you, because you're here to deliver truth, to deliver God's word, to deliver whatever it is. And people aren't going to like you for that. When you're delivering prophecy, or when you're sharing things that, like, people would want to burn you at the stake for in a previous incarnation, you've got to be strong, right? And so I always say it's not, I used to believe that I was being punished by God, and that was my belief, right?
Yeah,
like, God is punishing me. Yes.
Because a lot of people think they're being punished.
Yeah. I was like, I can't have what I want. I'm trying to manifest all this stuff. And instead of me, this is when I got on the new age path, right? I'm trying to manifest all these things. And instead of getting that, I'm just getting these lessons and these karmic relationships and all these being knocked on my fucking, like, put on my knees and beaten down. And it's like, it's not fair. And I remember my guide saying to me, Beck, you're not being punished, you're being prepared. And I was like, holy moly, like, it's grace. It is God's grace that I have not yet reached what I've been trying to manifest. Like, if I had have tried to release this book 2 years ago, or started reaching the audiences I've seen and people have seen for me that I'll be reaching, like, I would have cracked under the pressure. I would have, like, crumbled under people's judgments of me. I would have, I was not clear enough. There was no way. God was protecting me from attacks, from this, from that, from all of these things. And the process, which saw me enduring vast amounts of pain, putting me on my knees. I did contemplate suicide many times. Like, prior to writing this book, I got back from, basically, it's all about this grid work mission I went on in Mexico, working with sacred sites and retrieving past life memories and all of these things. And it was magical. And we'll talk about how magical it was. But when I got home, I'd been instructed on my final month there, you need to write a book about all of this. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then when I got back to Australia, I went through this, like, 3-month long complete dark night of the soul, where I just wanted to kill myself. Like, I was like, I can't connect to God. I can't connect to my path. I can't connect to my guides. I can't connect to my mission. Like, I think I reached out to you guys at that point. And I was like, yeah, what is going on? And you were like, there's some ancestral stuff
here, because it popped in before, but I wanted to say it because it's relevant right here. I can't connect to God. So here's the thing that I discovered.
Yeah.
The only time that you see the light is when you're in the darkness, right?
Yes.
When you're in the light, all you are in is the light, and you haven't got any like edges.
Yeah.
There's no, and so you think that you're actually not in the light because you can't see the light when you're in the light.
Yeah.
And that's when people feel like they can't connect with God because they're actually in it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. It does make sense. And for me, it was like slight different take on what you've just said. It's those moments of separation, feeling my perceived separate. You can't ever be separate, but thinking I was separate, that brought me back to God. Like I had to feel and experience myself as so separate and so alone and so whatever, to then realize I wasn't separate and God was always there, right? And even in those moments.
Else that I want to speak on, because people think that when they're on the journey that it's just going to be stepping forward.
Yeah.
How do you know you've progressed unless you slip back?
Yeah.
And then you realize how far you had come. And so it is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 3 steps back, but you're always kind of moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's when you stop doing the things that you're doing, or you, pardon me, forget to do the things that you know to do, because that happens, and you realize the value and importance of doing those rituals, those daily tasks, the sacred work. When you stop doing it, you realize how much impact it's having, where when you're doing it, you don't realize the impact that it's having because you're living it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're embodying it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You notice the absence of it when it's not there, but you're not noticing it when you're like connected to it.
Yeah.
Totally. There was something I was like, it was like right here and now it's gone.
I'm sorry.
No. Don't be sorry. Oh, I don't know. It's gone. Yeah, I think what you're saying about those loops, like it's interesting, this whole journey for me, and like it's been consistently revisiting the same themes that come back at every precipice of, specifically with, let's just talk even just the past 6 months of writing this book, because it's like that's a very like a sample of a larger frame of time, but it's been the same themes that have come up at every precipice. So when I started writing, all this stuff came up. When I went through the first initiation, all the stuff came up. When I first got the draft done, all the stuff came up. When I was about to publish, all the stuff came up. I've published, the stuff came up again. So it's like, and you can sit there and be like, oh my God, I'm going backwards. Why is this coming up again? Or you can realize this is the same thing, but I'm at a different point now and I'm at a higher perspective. And it's that spiral that, you guys always talk about. It's
a different lens that you're looking through.
Yeah.
Because you have more knowledge, more experience. You're at a different stage on the spiral. And it's especially when it's our core learnings, of course it's going to keep coming up as we're getting uncomfortable. Like those sorts of things come up when we're stretching our comfort zone. And that's where you see where the fragility is within you when you get uncomfortable. And I've heard some people say you've got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And then, you can navigate it with more ease and grace.
I've got a story.
Yeah.
About getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. I think for me, like I have every time I have resistance to something or I don't want to do it, it's usually the exact thing. So I was in Mexico for this whole mission, right? And I knew that I was out there working with sacred sites. And I had a sister of mine who was like seeing stuff for me. Like, so she was seeing me go to all these sites. And she kept seeing me like balls deep in the jungle somewhere, like going on this big, like Indiana Jones style hike. And every fiber of my being was like, hell no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But I knew that something in that experience would be exactly what I needed. Like it was the thing I really like. It was like the most so I had a fear of the dark at the time. I had a fear of nature at the time. Like I didn't like hike, like all the things I could possibly think of, fear of traveling by myself, like every possible thing that I could create as to why I didn't want to do it. And so, of course, it was the exact thing I needed to do. And in that experience, it broke me down completely. And I think that's what the avoidance, like we know that thing that we're so afraid of is going to be the thing to catalyze us into our next level. So subconsciously we avoid doing it.
Oh, of
we're
course.
afraid of like that expansion. So I knew, I was like, the minute I get out in nature and I'm hiking and I'm in the dark and I'm fully connected and I get over these stories, I'm going to be unstoppable. And you know, like that's how the whole book starts, with me in this hike in the fucking Guatemalan, excuse my language, in the Guatemalan jungle, right? Like it's literally the whole thing started with that.
Yeah.
And I just know that so many people, like, they feel that edge or they feel that thing, and instead of diving into it, they run away from it. Absolutely, because they're afraid of who will I be on the other side of this. They're afraid of the uncertainty of the death that you have to go through in that mourning.
Yeah.
That like mourning of who I was. And so that's kind of what I'm going through at the moment. Like on the other side of this whole thing, it's like I'm in mourning for all the versions of myself I've had to let go of.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Yeah.
And it's a process. Like it's big. Like when you're doing this work, it's a big process. And I don't think people give themselves that space to actually acknowledge like how many versions of yourself you've shifted through and had to overcome and let go of to get to where you are. And it doesn't always take a leap into like a jungle trek to get you to where you need to be.
It could be that was a bit like
but I'm always like that. I'm like, I'm gonna jump off a cliff. Like that's me. I'm extreme, right? 1-3 line. Not everyone's like that. But
no.
It's funny. Something was coming through when we were talking about the Diamond Light Path earlier, and I was getting like this message of like, we don't become our highest selves with everything being easy and handed to us. Like your greatest becoming that's inevitably you're gonna have to deal with some stuff and face some stuff that's hard. And I think in our society today, because of the instant gratification of social media and people projecting a certain image, like we're very expecting everything now. We're very taught, especially in the new age. This is something I want to speak into actually, because I have like a fire in my belly about this. We're taught just manifest everything and you're a creator and you're this God and you're blah, blah, blah. It just, to me, like doesn't speak into this divine timing, God's timing, God's will, thy will. There's a higher will that is higher than your little human will to desire to have your sports car and your house or whatever it is. And sometimes you need to go through some things that are really uncomfortable, and that's not God hating on you or punishing you, or it's not because you're a victim, right? It's because it's shaping you to be able to absolutely. And like we forget that. And for me, I have a huge victim story that comes up every time I don't get to have what I want. I'm like, oh, here it goes again. Like this is evidence that God is like pushing me and dangling the carrot and blah, 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 whatever. My God wound comes up. And I have to remind myself of every single time it was grace. It was grace. It was grace. I'm being prepared. I'm being prepared. So when that thing that I desire so freaking badly, not having it breaks me apart, shows up, I don't mess it up. I don't sabotage it. I don't push that love away. I don't, like freak out because someone commented on my book that this witch is like not Christian. I'm like, whatever. Like, I don't, whatever it is, like Christians coming at me, telling me I don't believe in God because I'm talking about Christ consciousness, whatever it is, right? It's like, we can't see and know why things have to be the way that they are. But if you see it as like, everything is preparing me for my highest, greatest good and becoming, then it stops being like, then you're able to lean into the discomfort a little bit more and understand, okay, this sucks. Like this sucks. And I can't see how this is grace, but there is a reason that I'm here. And that's when I was back here in like December, I knew, because I'd been through so many deaths by that point, that I was like, this is really hard and I'm questioning everything. And I'm about to like literally like get rid of my whole business and go to the church and become a nun. And that's where I was at. I was like, I'm done with everything. I'm check myself into a mental institution. I don't know. But some part of me was like, we've been here before. We have been here before. And look what happened on the other side of this. Like, it's always like, boom, this whole new level, right? So it's getting used to that. And in the moments where it's down, knowing it's going to come back again. And when it's high, knowing like this is not going to last forever, not in a bad way, but like, you know, life invariably, like things happen. It's cyclical. So don't
Well,
like be
that's right.
present with it when it's
And
good.
I think that when you have a goal, and let's say the goal is a mountaintop in the distance,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get to that mountaintop by hopping over the valley,
Yeah.
right? There might be 4 peaks before you get to the one that you want. So you got to climb up and down into the valley, climb back up, down the other side, across the valley, and that's how you're going to get to the peak that you want. And what happens is people don't want to experience what's on the valley floor because that's being confronted by yourself, right? And what your inner world is creating for you. And, you know, I've lived all this time and I have rarely shared the valley floors.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I haven't been laid out on the valley floor. I have. And what I've come to understand is it's not about not sharing the valley floor. It's about how did you navigate the valley floor? What did you do to navigate the valley floor? That's what's helpful for other people. They don't want to go down into the well with you and be staying on the valley floor with you. They don't want to know all the woes and all the dramas, but they do want to know how you got through the woes and the dramas. What did you do? What did you do differently to get back climbing up the mountain to where you want to be? And, you know, some of those things are that you have to actually be disciplined. You have to do the things that you have to do every day. And I said this to somebody else recently. People who go to the gym every day, do they love going to the gym every day?
I certainly don't, but I go most, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they get up and they go because they know, I know who it was Jennifer Garner was talking to Drew Barrymore about what she does every day. And she said, no, I don't like doing it. But on the other side of that, she loves the feeling. It's the same with your spiritual work or your inner work.
Yeah.
You got to do those things every day to feel how you want to feel.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing something sacred, if you're not doing something spiritual, you're not doing something that is connecting you to God, then you're going to feel the absence of that. And you're not going to feel as whole and complete as you want to feel because it's a part of the journey. And
I'm really feeling the sovereignty piece coming through, like the taking ownership and doing the things that you know, even though they're not comfortable, they're not fun, they're not enjoyable, like you know you need to do for your growth. And I think that's the thing with the spiritual journey. Like most people want to heal, they want to get the juicy stuff on the other side, but they're not realizing it's a path of dissension. Ascension is a path of dissension. You need to be willing to go into the body. And this is, I talk at length about this as well. Like a lot of light workers want to bypass the humanness and they just want to be like, I'm 5D now, living in the new earth, like all this stuff.
And can you explain to me, because I don't even know what that means. So I seriously do not know what that means. What does that mean?
So 5D is like fifth dimensional consciousness, which is oneness,
but what
unity.
does that look like?
What is it? This is exactly it. Like people don't know what that actually means. And so they think that me being in the fifth dimensional consciousness is me eating a raw food diet and going to kirtan. And it's like so funny. Oh, I sound so judgmental. But like it is, it's they are attributing it to external things and situational things or habits, right? And to me, fifth dimensional consciousness is oneness. So it's like unconditional oneness and love and connection to everything that is. And it's taking the perspective of the creator. So it's Christ consciousness is what I would see fifth dimensional consciousness as. And in order to ascend to Christ consciousness or be in that, and the thing is, like, you can switch between being in the 5D and being in the 3, like you can very easily go between dimensions, just as I can go into the astral realm in the 4th dimension and talk to some entities and then come back to the 3rd dimensional in my body. And then suddenly I'm on the 11th dimension in a spaceship. Like, you can switch between these. So people, that's the other thing. People say, I'm in the 5D all the time. It's like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, you're not, because at the moment we're in this time-space reality where our Earth is actually shifting from 3rd dimensional consciousness, Gaia, into 4th, into 5th. So she has not made the full shift into the new Earth, which is what the new Earth would be. And I get really salty about this in the book, so I'm not going to go on a rant, but I think people think that the new Earth is, oh, I'm consciously blessing my water and I'm eating vegetables and I'm going to dance and I'm projecting this spiritual person out.
Well, so tell me, what is it? Because this is an area that I haven't actually, I haven't Googled it. I haven't looked at it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just in my lane, right?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Yeah.
With the Earth? Like, what from your perspective?
Absolutely. So do you want my perspective as in, like, I can go deep into my perspective, into the prophecy that came through me from the Mayans for the book of, like, the destruction that we all need to face as a collective in order to reach this new Earth? Or I could go into, like, the lighter, fluffier version of we're going through a process of ascension as a humanity. I think I'm going to go into the lighter, fluffier version, and then I'm there.
And then they can buy your book and read it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a caveat. And so the version that we are in a pivotal shift for humanity as a collective, where we are moving into a new age or era of consciousness. We just came out of the Kali Yuga, which is the age of Pisces, which is materialism, greed, egocentric. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, or we've already sort of shifted, which is a new yuga. Every yuga is a cycle of time. They're like thousands of years. And every change of a yuga or a cycle, it's a shift in consciousness. So humanity is now, we've been there a few times, the golden ages, like Atlantis, Lemuria, that sort of thing. We're kind of at this cusp, breaking or turning point, where we can either shift into this advanced golden age where we are in 5th dimensional consciousness, we're connected to each other, we're using advanced spiritual technologies, we're co-creating with the land, we're living in a more tribal kind of way again, really heart open, centered, we're communicating telepathically, exciting, wild, amazing things. That's the potential, and it's already happening. So that's the potential. Or we crumble into oblivion and have another cataclysm and self-destruct and then have to start all over again. And I want to say this process is constant. Souls are never ending. And even humanity, like, we have been here for so much longer than our histories will say that we are. We are constantly evolving. We come from DNA, which is seeded from star races. So we are much older as a humanity than we think we are. But we're at this point again where we're about to shift into this new age. And that's what people are feeling. All this stuff is coming out, all this new age stuff. People are becoming more open-minded. What I want to say is the way that a lot of people in the spiritual community are dealing with this timeline split into the 3D, 5D, shifting into the new age is, and this is what I speak to in the book, is really negating the fact that a breakdown needs to happen for us to shift into this new age.
So basically, like the fire of the phoenix.
Absolutely, like Revelation in the Bible, like apocalyptic stuff, right? And I say this without fear, but what I say is that destruction needs to happen before the new can be birthed. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a cataclysm or destruction in that way, but it needs to be a destruction of everything that we have in our society that is not working. A breakdown of our governments, a breakdown of our schooling system, a breakdown of the industry and the corporate world and all the things, that the greed, the corruption, all of that ugliness that has been under the surface, keeping us stuck in this lower reality, war, greed, power hungry, money, the financial, all these things, like the shadow governments, it needs to come up. We need to deal with it. And this is individually as well as collectively. So this is like each one of us dealing with our internal stuff and being willing to, like, be on the cross of all of our stuff.
So how do you see that playing out? Because I find that hard to conceptualize.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is the problem, right? So a lot of channelers are out there saying that there's these two timelines, and that because we're ascended and we're evolved and we're spiritual, we're on the 5D timeline where none of this breakdown has to happen, and we're just in the new earth, and the spaceship's going to come and put us on this new earth. And to me, that's spiritual bypassing. That's negating that. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a teething process. We actually have to build the structures and the systems. And in order to build the structures and the systems, we need to get rid of what is there that's no longer working. So I see this as a potential collapse of our government system, a potential collapse of our financial system, a potential collapse of, I'm seeing a lot of natural disasters. I don't want to freak anyone out. And please know, like, when I speak of this ending, I speak of this ending with the vision in my heart of, I know this beautiful new earth that's going to come on the other side. And this is what this journey of this book is about. Like, it's about being willing to go through it, knowing that on the other side, it's a golden age for humanity, where we are all in the heart, and we are, we're living in respect and reverence for our earth, and we're not harming her, and we're not harming each other. And there's no war, and there's none of this crap that is in our society of control and enslavement, right? But it's going to get uncomfortable, right? And so I think as spiritual people, as people who are connected to spirit, our job is to hold that vision of like what's on the other side while things are getting really ugly, because they're going to get ugly. And we're seeing this already, like things coming up, wars erupting, like this ugliness. This year has been wild. All this stuff is coming up. And we need to be willing to like look at it and acknowledge it, especially like there's lots of masculine clearing I'm noticing this year of all the wounded masculine patriarchal shit is coming up. So we can look at it and be like,
so like I think I must be naive and like live in my bubble. Describe to me what that is.
So we're basically being shown all of the places in which collectively we have not evolved our consciousness as a masculine, because we all have feminine and masculine consciousness within us, right? Like feminine, masculine energy. We're being shown where the masculine, the patriarchal energy is very dominating, controlling, to the detriment of the feminine, so the earth, to the feminine being, so women. There's lots of stuff coming up I'm seeing around like abuse against women is really like it's present, lots of war, lots of politics stuff coming up. And it's basically exposing that archetype or that energy of the wounded masculine. We're being forced to look at it. Like, here it is in our society. Here is evidence. And it's even internal, right? So I'm being faced to look at my own wounded masculine and up-level him. And that's what this whole journey was for me, like stepping into my warrior, into my divine masculine. So once we're faced with it and we look at it, then we can choose.
So what does divine masculine look like? Like, and I'm sorry, I'm not doing this to pick at you.
No.
But this is an area of confusion for me. I hear people say stuff like this, and I don't want to be the person that doesn't understand and doesn't say anything anymore. So that's why I'm asking the question. And if I'm asking the question, other people might have the same question.
Okay. So a really good archetype of divine masculine energy would be Jesus. Jesus is like the epitome of what the divine masculine would stand for. The divine masculine is in his heart. He is hard. He's not, he's strong, but he's not hard. Right. So he is strong on the inside and soft on the outside. We see an archetypical man who is strong and we're like, that's a man. Masculine is strong because he's got muscles and he's tough. And it's like, actually, the true divine masculine, I'm sure Frank embodies this beautiful. I just feel that Frank does. I don't know him, but I just feel his energy. Like, they're strong on the inside. They are solid. They are grounded. They're in their heart. They are service focused. So they're about serving. They are deeply respectful and in reverence to the feminine, and they understand. And this is okay. This is coming through to talk about. I'm getting really into Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I mean, I've always been really into them, but them as a partnership. And Jesus was teaching really in mystery school trainings, and his whole lineage was about a unity template for leadership. So women and masculine having in partnership, in sacred partnership, right? And so the divine masculine understands the women are his equal. We're not the same, but we are equal.
Right.
We have our own gifts. The feminine is the intuition and the oracle and the creativity and the life force and the emotion and the chaos and all of these other things, the heart, the soul. The masculine is the discipline. It's the grit. It's the grit that you were talking about.
Do you
Grit,
know
determination, structure.
Thank you so much. You've been able to articulate it in a way that I actually understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we all have this within us, right?
Thank you.
We all have masculine and feminine. And especially if you're in spiritual business, you will have seen both your feminine and your masculine. Your feminine is the vision, the download, the creativity, the flow. The masculine is I'm going to sit down and schedule my day and get the shit done.
Got it.
Yeah. So what has been happening collectively is, so basically what happened is, for our society and collective and humanity, and I'm going to try and make this brief because I know we're getting to time, but we used to revere the goddess, right? As much as God was revered, the goddess was revered. And then what happened after Jesus, they really just like cut the feminine completely out of the equation. They diminished the woman to second-class citizen, took away our rights, took away our power, all of that. They just wanted to diminish the feminine and make it this patriarchal, masculine-based world where the masculine was the one God, the power, all of that, right? What has happened is the feminine reclamation has started for the past kind of like 100 or so, I want to say 100 or so years, like the feminine power has come back, like women in the workforce, women being allowed to vote. Now it's kind of getting a little bit distorted because women are now hating on men in the ways that men hated on women, but I won't get into that whole conversation. But we've had a divine feminine reclamation, and we're seeing this particularly online. Lots of people like myself standing up, doing divine feminine work, Shakti work, all of that. So it's coming up, it's more prevalent. And the feminine was really spearheading this shift into the new age. And it was the female healers, mentors, priestesses, whatever they were, however they saw themselves. Like, I'm sure you don't use the word priestess for yourself, but you are in some degree. That's what you are. You're a woman of God. They were on the forefront. So it was the women who were kind of like leading this shift and healing the feminine. So the feminine the goddess started to kind of come back and be revered. So we've been shifting into this more divine feminine energy. But what has happened is, when the feminine rises, then the masculine must kind of rise to meet her, because they have to be on the same. So when you're healing a bit of your feminine, then you need to heal a bit of your masculine, because then your feminine can't be held by your masculine if your masculine doesn't have the holding capacity equivalent to your feminine. So on a personal level, this would look like I'm reclaiming some of my divine feminine aspects, like my wildness or my creativity or my sensuality or my magnetism. And now I'm noticing that there's a part of me who's triggered because I feel like I'm too much, because society's told me I'm too much in that. So then you have to look at the masculine in you who is judging that, or who can't hold a container for the emotion that is clear and non-judgmental. And masculine consciousness is witness consciousness. So it's presence.
Oh, okay.
It's just it's like God. God is witness presence, like, right? And the goddess is creation. So the goddess is experiencing.
Oh, okay.
And the masculine is witnessing.
I get that. Yeah.
So if you want to think of like the pure archetype of feminine and masculine, feminine is goddess, masculine is God, masculine is creator. So the one who thought the thing to create, then the feminine was the one who breathed it into being and is the creation. She's the unfolding of the creation. She's the energy of the creation.
Right.
So internally, that would look like, the idea, the impulse, the soul-led desire, that's the feminine. And then the doing of that, the thinking of it is the masculine. But as one evolves, the other one needs to evolve. So basically bringing us back to where we are now as a society, the feminine has really up-leveled and there's so much like feminine reclamation that's happened that now the masculine's like so not up to task, and it's really being highlighted. Like now it's the masculine's turn to rise.
So we're not talking about men and women. We're talking about
energetic imprint,
energy within women.
Absolutely. Yes. And men. But it is
with the creation within them matching the doing of.
Yes. And we are also talking, there is I have to speak into the fact that, like, especially in the spiritual world, we haven't had a lot of male leaders embodying divine masculine energy. And this is something that's reflected to me constantly by clients and people. They're like, where are all the men doing the men's work? Women have been doing the women's work and like women's circles. And
look, I want to speak to this because there is a lot of men's work being done
now.
Yeah. And because my best friend is doing work in the men's area.
Amazing.
And she has got contacts all over the world of the men doing the work. And it's so rewarding to hear that men are doing the work. And
now they are. Yes.
Yeah, her unique position is that she can speak to both sides of that. And the men are really appreciating the perspective that she's bringing without judgment.
Yeah.
And I'm getting an insight into that from my inner circle chats. But I am really, what's the word? I'm excited for the future of men in the world.
Yes, same. And this is recent. I want to say that this is like the past year and a half, 2 years. In 2022, when I was in Mexico, I was channeling the goddess Isis, and it was this like, just the women, like I could feel all the women who were like, where are all the men doing this work and stepping up? As we need the men to, like, we need the masculine to rise.
From what
and they are. See. Yes, they are. And that's what I wanted to say. Absolutely.
That's exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting. And I'm feeling that and I'm seeing that. And I've encountered so many beautiful masculine men on this journey who like true divine masculine who are leading the men. So I want to say, yes, of course, it is happening now. But as that happens, all the shit is being excavated for us to look at. And that's inevitable. Like the more light there is, then the darker things are going to like be shone on, right?
Look, here's the thing. And the brighter the light gets, the darker the dark will get, because there has to be the divine order.
Yeah.
So
that's the same as the bigger the feminine gets, the more masculine. Like it's the same. It's the same. They need to be. Yeah.
It's there has to be balance. Like we have the yin and yang, and if the light workers want their light to be brighter.
Exactly. So this, Julie, right here is fifth dimensional consciousness. It is beyond polarity, where you see all of it is the same, two ends of the same spectrum. So light workers saying I'm fifth dimensional consciousness, but then negating their own shadow. Or light workers saying I'm fifth dimensional consciousness, but we're going to leap onto this new earth without having to do any of the inevitable difficulty that's going to rise, right? It's the spiritual bypassing is the issue. The light washing is what I like to call it. That's the anyway, it's a whole thing, but I could do a whole 5 podcasts about this and write a book about it, and I did. But that's like fifth dimensional consciousness is understanding it's all necessary, it's all relevant. The suffering, the struggling is necessary to make us the diamond, right? It's Jesus like willingly went and got crucified, guys. You want an imprint of fifth dimensional consciousness? This man endured the suffering of humanity for this bigger purpose. That's really, you want to know what fifth dimensional consciousness is? Jesus, the Buddha, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Mary Magdalene, they all went through hardship and difficulty. Every single one of them has a story where they suffered in some way. And you do and I do, right? So it's what it is. It's what it is.
Oh my God, Beck, I've enjoyed this because you have answered some questions that I've never been game to ask.
Amazing. Love that.
And so if I've not been game to ask them, I'm sure other people listening won't have been game to ask. And you put it in words that I could actually understand. And it's so funny. Sometimes I have to ring this friend or that friend and I'd say, can you just decode that for me? And they have to bring it back into a language that I understand. And you've done that for me. So thank you.
My honor.
Wow. What a chat.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for having me. That was good. I was like, I'm going to cry, and I wasn't crying.
No, you got fired up.
Yeah.
So is there any last message that you would like to say?
Yeah, it's let me just feel. It's just to whoever is out there going through some stuff and it sucks and it's really hard. I think a lot of us are being put through some really tough lessons to close out some timelines right now. I don't know when this will be out, but I mean, that's always relevant. Lots of people are always going through stuff. I want to say, like, how, if you could take a perspective of how is this being scripted in perfection for me, and how is this preparing me for what I've asked for, and just try and take that perspective. I promise you, and stop resisting. Just let yourself fall apart. Let yourself surrender and dive and lean into it and just be messy and be like a blob of sad mess or whatever you like. Just don't avoid your feelings is what I want to say. Don't avoid them. Just, they're so intelligent and they're telling you every minute of every day exactly where you need to be and where you're headed, and what you're creating. So don't negate your feelings. Don't bypass your feelings. You're not more spiritual because you're bypassing your feel. Like I think there's this idea that I must be more spiritually evolved than that and be above my feelings. And it's like, you're a human having a human experience, and don't forget that you're a human having a human experience, as well as you are a soul having a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
That's what I want to leave. That's fifth dimensional consciousness. The 444 as we finish. So there you go.
There we go. And where can they find you? Where can they find your book?
Yes. So it's rebekahmylonas.com. The book is called Diamond Light Oracle. It's on Amazon. It's on all the stores. So if you just Google Diamond Light Oracle, I'm sure it will come up. And that's it. It's on my website as well. And I'm on Instagram, rebekahmylonas. And it's a whole journey. It's a codex. So it's not like a story. It is a story, but it's like I've been birthing this codex for many, many, many years and lifetimes. And it's a full soul retrieval, and it's a journey. And the feedback I've been getting is pretty incredible. So
that's awesome. Congratulations.
Journey, thank you. Yeah.
Can't wait to get my copy.
Yeah. And you guys are referenced in the book. I actually mentioned you briefly, I think twice in the book. So there you go.
There we go.
Not by name, because I don't use anyone's names, but
yeah,
I was working with these women and they checked this thing for me and they helped me to do so cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we will wrap up there.
Beautiful.